Right now, you're wearing clothes, and the second you take them off in public, you'd be arrested. But for 190,000 years, your ancestors walked around completely exposed, in front of everyone, children, elders, strangers, zero embarrassment, zero shame, zero fear. But today, we can't even change in a locker room without feeling uncomfortable. So what happened? What changed in the human brain that made us hate our own bodies? The answer involves one invention that destroyed 190,000 years of human confidence. And you need to hear this story. Let's go back, way back, 200,000 BC. The first modern humans appear in Africa, and they look exactly like us. Same body, same brain, but there's one massive difference. They're not wearing anything. No shirts, no pants, no underwear, nothing. And here's the part that'll blow your mind. They didn't care. Imagine that for a second. You wake up. Your entire tribe is around you. You get up. You stretch. You start your day. No one's staring. No one's judging. No one's comparing. Because the human body, it was just normal. Like having hands. Or feet. Think about a 5-year-old child today. Before anyone teaches them shame, they run around freely. They don't care who sees them. That's not innocence. That's how humans are supposed to be. Ancient humans never lost that. They lived their entire lives with that same freedom. A woman giving birth, the whole tribe gathered around, supporting her. No one looked away. An elderly person bathing in the river, no embarrassment, no awkwardness. A young couple showing affection, the community smiled and gave them space. There was no hiding, no pretending, no shame. It was just life. Anthropologists studying modern hunter-gatherer tribes discovered something fascinating. The Himba people of Namibia, the Zoe tribe in Brazil, the Korowai in Papua New Guinea. They still live like our ancestors. And guess what? Body shame doesn't exist in their vocabulary. Dr. Margaret Mead, one of the most famous anthropologists in history, spent decades studying Pacific Island cultures. She noticed something remarkable. In societies where people grew up without clothing restrictions, they had healthier relationships with their bodies. Less anxiety, less comparison, less self-hatred. The Samoans she studied didn't have words for fat or ugly the way we do. They had words for healthy and strong. The focus wasn't on how you looked. It was on what you could do. Can you hunt? Can you gather? Can you build? Can you help the tribe survive? That's what mattered. Your belly wasn't too big or too small. It just was. Your height wasn't too short or too tall. It just was. You were a human, and that was enough. Dr. James Sussman, an anthropologist who spent 25 years with the San people of Southern Africa, said something that should make us all pause. In traditional societies, people don't have eating disorders. They don't have body dysmorphia. They don't spend hours staring in mirrors, picking apart every flaw. Why? Because shame about the human body is learned. It's not natural. It's not biological. It's not evolution. It's something that had to be taught to us. But here's the question that changes everything. If shame is learned, who taught it to us? And more importantly, why? 10,000 BC, something changes. The agricultural revolution. For 190,000 years, humans had been nomads. We moved with the seasons. We followed the animals. We lived light. But then, someone figured out you could grow food. And everything changed. This wasn't just about farming. This was about power. When you're a nomad, you can't own much. You carry what you need and move on. But when you settle, when you farm, suddenly you can own land, store grain, accumulate wealth. And with wealth comes something humanity had never experienced before. Inequality. For the first time in 190,000 years, some humans had more than others. And they needed a way to show it. Suddenly, humans stopped moving. We built permanent homes. We stored food. We accumulated things. And here's where clothing enters the story. Before agriculture, clothing was purely functional. If it was cold, you wrapped yourself in animal skin. If it was hot, you didn't. Simple. There was no fashion, no style, no status symbol. A fur wrap in winter was just warmth. But once we settled down and created hierarchy, it became a status symbol. The tribal chief? He wore elaborate decorations, feathers, beads, dyed fabrics. The successful farmer? Better quality materials, more layers, finer craftsmanship. The poor? Basic wraps, minimal coverage, sometimes nothing at all. And suddenly, your body became a statement about your worth. If you were exposed, you were showing everyone. You had nothing. You were at the bottom. For the first time in human history, being without clothes didn't mean you were comfortable. It meant you were poor. Shame had entered humanity, not because of the body itself, but because of what being exposed meant in this new world of hierarchy. Archaeological evidence from ancient Mesopotamia shows this transformation clearly. In early settlements from 800 BC, most people are depicted similarly. Minimal clothing, no major distinctions. But by 400 BC, the art shows clear class divisions. Rulers in elaborate robes, workers in simple wraps, slaves often with nothing. Your clothing told everyone exactly where you stood in society. And if you stood at the bottom, your exposed body was a mark of shame. This is the moment. This is when it started. The human body, which had been neutral for 190,000 years, became a symbol of poverty, of low status, of unworthiness. But it gets worse, because then, organized belief systems arrived. Now, before we continue, let me be very clear. This isn't about criticizing anyone's beliefs. This is about history, about what happened, about how ideas spread and changed human behavior. Around 300 BC, something else emerged. Organized societies, written laws, structured belief systems. And these systems needed order. They needed rules to keep millions of people coordinated. One of those rules? Modesty. Suddenly, the human body wasn't just a body anymore. It was dangerous. In ancient Mesopotamia, the Code of Hammurabi included laws about proper dress. Certain classes had to cover certain body parts. Breaking these rules meant punishment. In ancient Egypt, priests developed strict codes about ritual purity. The body was seen as a vessel that needed to be controlled, covered, purified. In ancient Greece and Rome, public exposure became associated with slavery and poverty. Free citizens covered themselves. Slaves often did not. The message was spreading across civilizations. Your body is something to be controlled. Your natural form is something to be hidden. And children who, for 190,000 years, had grown up comfortable in their own skin, were now being taught a new lesson. Your body is shameful. Religious texts from this period reflect this shift. Ancient Hindu texts prescribed modest dress. Buddhist teachings emphasized covering the body as a form of discipline. As Christianity spread through Europe, the teachings became even stricter. The body was described as sinful, tempting, dangerous. Early Christian leaders wrote extensively about the need to cover flesh, to resist bodily temptation, to see the physical form as separate from the pure soul. By the time we get to medieval Europe, this idea had become extreme. Showing any skin was considered sinful. Women were covered head to toe. Showing hair was scandalous. Showing ankles was provocative. Men wore layers upon layers, multiple tunics, heavy robes. Bathing became rare because it required removing clothes and seeing one's own body. Some medieval Europeans went months without bathing because of the shame associated with being unclothed, even alone. The human form, the same body that had walked freely for nearly 200,000 years, was now considered dirty, sinful, wrong. Something to be hidden not just from others, but from yourself. Mirrors were discouraged. Self-examination was vanity. The message was clear: your body is the enemy. And the shame? Stuck. It embedded itself into culture, into language, into the way we raise children. Still with us today. Fast forward to 2026. We live in the most advanced civilization in human history. We've been to the moon. We've cured diseases. We've split the atom. We carry supercomputers in our pockets. We've mapped the human genome. But we still can't look at ourselves in the mirror without criticism. Think about that for a second. We've solved problems our ancestors couldn't even imagine. But we can't solve the problem of accepting our own bodies. The global beauty industry? $500 billion a year. That's more than the GDP of entire countries. We spend more on looking different than we do on education in some nations. Eating disorders affect 70 million people worldwide. 90% of women report feeling ashamed of their bodies. And it's not just women anymore. Men's body image issues have skyrocketed. Body dysmorphia is at an all-time high. Cosmetic surgery is booming. Teenagers are getting procedures that previous generations never considered. Social media has amplified everything. Now we don't just compare ourselves to our neighbors. We compare ourselves to filtered, edited, photoshopped images of strangers around the world. We've created a world where people are terrified of being seen as they naturally are. Beach trips cause anxiety. Gym locker rooms cause panic. Intimate relationships are affected by shame. Some people won't let their partners see them without makeup, without certain lighting, without preparation. We've turned the human body into something that requires constant maintenance, constant improvement, constant hiding. Meanwhile, those tribes who never adopted clothing shame, they don't have these problems. The Himba, the Zoe, the San people. No eating disorders, no body hatred, no shame spirals, no billion-dollar beauty industry telling them they're not good enough. They have the same bodies we do, the same imperfections, the same variations, the same aging process. Some are taller, some are shorter, some are heavier, some are thinner, but they don't have the shame, because no one ever taught it to them. They look in the water's reflection and see a human. We look in the mirror and see a project, something to fix, something to hide. So what does this tell us? For 190,000 years, humans lived without body shame. We survived ice ages. We migrated across continents. We built the first communities, all while being completely comfortable in our own skin. It was only in the last 10,000 years, just 5% of human history, that we learned to hate ourselves. And that shame, we're passing it down to the next generation. Right now, there's a 5-year-old who thinks their body is perfect. And in a few years, society will teach them it's not. So here's the uncomfortable truth. Shame about the human body isn't natural. It's not biological. It's not evolution. It's not hardwired into our DNA. It's a learned behavior that started 10,000 years ago, when humans created hierarchy, inequality, and control. When we needed ways to show who had power and who didn't. When organized systems needed to control large populations. Now, am I saying we should all walk around with no clothes? No, that's not the point, and that's not realistic. Clothing serves practical purposes. Protection from weather, cultural expression, personal comfort. That's not what this is about. The point is this. Our ancestors spent 190,000 years comfortable in their own bodies. They didn't waste mental energy hating themselves. They didn't develop disorders trying to look different. They didn't spend hours examining every perceived flaw. They just existed. They used their bodies as tools for survival, for connection, for life. But we've created a world where people spend decades, sometimes their entire lives, hating the body they were born with, fighting against their natural form, trying to achieve some impossible standard that doesn't even exist in nature. Maybe the real question isn't, why did ancient humans have no shame? Maybe the question is, why did we learn it? And more importantly, can we unlearn it? Because here's the thing. If our ancestors could live 190,000 years without body shame, If they could raise children who grew into adults who never learned to hate themselves. If they could build communities based on contribution rather than appearance. Maybe we can figure out how to do it for just one lifetime. Maybe we can raise one generation that doesn't inherit this shame. Maybe we can look in the mirror and see what ancient humans saw. A body, a tool, a vessel for life. Not a problem to solve. Not a project to fix. Not something to hide. Just a body. History shows us who we were. But we get to decide who we become. And maybe, just maybe, we can become people who remember what 190,000 years of humans knew instinctively, that there's nothing shameful about being human. Thanks for watching.